Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Welcome into the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, where we discuss all the news in basketball, NBA, college. We'll mix in some high school.
Seems
like we only ever talk about
Max Preps.
Chino Hills, but
Max Preps. Look me up. You can look me up.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, maybe we'll have to do that. We'll have to break down your game by game stats.
Hey, legend. Okay.
The GOAT, Pauline.
The
greatest
GOAT.
of all time.
Thank you.
But anyways, we mix it all in here. It's the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Thanks for listening again. Ben and Pauline back in the studio today on a Monday. And this is I guess you can say the peak of the show here. Because it's playoff time, baby.
Yes.
We got NBA playoffs, first round action starting Saturday. Mm-hmm. Games yesterday. Even got a couple mixed in today. So we got a lot to cover here. A lot of news at the end as well. Phil Jackson, Carmelo Anthony, that marriage heading for divorce. What did Phil say on Friday?
Fair.
All that coming up here. We're going to break down these playoff games, though. We're going to break these into multiple segments. Mm-hmm. So we're going to do Eastern Conference, Western Conference. I, of course, did that on Friday when I previewed these games. I mentioned at the end of the Friday show that we're going to talk about our awards for the year, who we thought would be MVP, Coach of the Year, etc.
Oh, right.
But we're going to wait on that, seeing as how we did have some news come out with the Phil Jackson, Carmelo Anthony saga going on. And given the fact that the awards are coming out pretty late this year, June 26th, the NBA's having a standalone day for everything.
A whole award show, like the ESPYs.
Right. So we're going to kind of wait until then to give our official predictions. So we'll just kind of
I wonder how that's going to be. I guess we'll see.
That'll be fun. We'll definitely just kind of take it easy, talk about some playoff games in each conference, talk about some news, etc. So let's get right into it. There's no more time to waste. Let's get right into the nitty-gritty here. Eastern Conference, the first game of the NBA playoffs was the Cavaliers and the Pacers. This is the 2-7 matchup in the East. And Pauline, I talked about it on Friday. The team I was looking forward to watching most in the whole NBA playoffs this postseason is the Cavaliers, because for the past couple of months they've made it clear they do not care about the regular season. They're taking days off. They're resting.
We're doing this on purpose.
They're getting ready to get to this point right here. So because of that, I was like, you know what? This is definitely the team I want to watch.
Then
most.
I'm expecting them to come out and play. Because clearly when you're a little kid and you're wasn't even trying,
Exactly.
So that's basically what they've been doing.
Show me what
trying
are
is
doing when you are trying.
Yes,
show me what trying looks like to you.
Yes.
And the Cavaliers won. They won game one, which is obviously the goal. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter if you won by 40 or won by 1.
Yeah, you got the W. Mm-hmm.
But I was still not impressed with them. They win 109-108 over the Indiana Pacers. CJ Miles for Indiana misses the game-winning shot there at the end. He did finish with 5 points, 2 of 6 from the floor. But again, it was the Cleveland Cavaliers in the fourth quarter. They were up by 8 going into the quarter. The Indiana Pacers come back, though, and they had a chance to win it late. Paul George finished with 29 points, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds. But after the game, definitely kind of upset. Not necessarily at CJ Miles, but at himself for not going and getting the ball and saying, hey, you know what? I'm the all-star. I'm the leader of this team. I need to go out there and take the last shot.
Yeah.
Which I honestly like. I like that he's being selfish in that regard because this is his team. They're
Sure.
in this position. 17's not fantastic, 42 and 40, but they're in this position because of PG-13. So I actually like the fact that he's going out there saying, hey, you know what? Like, I need to go get the ball. I'm the star. I need to take the game-winning shot. I need to put all that pressure on myself. So I love that he did that. We'll see what happens in Game 2. One player that did impress me, of course, LeBron James. He knows what this moment's like. He knows it's game time.
Yes.
32 points, 13 assists, and 6 rebounds. Kyrie Irving chipped in with 23 points and 6 assists, although he shot really, really poor. 11 of 27 from the floor, 1 of 9 from 3. Kevin Love, 17 points. Channing Frye off the bench with 11. But again, Pauline, one game, but I'm still not sold on the Cavs. It's like they flip a switch and everything's great all of a sudden. I'm still not sold on that case.
No, I totally agree. I wasn't impressed by this. I'm sure they'll still skate by, but it's not going to be like if I'm the Pacers, I'm looking at this loss and I'm like, all right, we're fine.
Yeah,
we're
one
fine.
game
we
on
were
the
literally
road.
up there with them. They matched up pretty well, so it's like, all right, we're fine. One loss, not a terrible loss. No hard feelings. Let's get in it and let's be 1 point better than we were last night, and then we got this.
Exactly. I kind of agree with you there. They battled on the road. When you'd imagine the Cavs are coming out really hungry. LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love all rested the last couple of games of the season, so they're fresh. So I like kind of the situation they're in. I still expect the Cavs to roll by them. But I'm still not sold on the fact that they can just flip a switch and everything's great.
Yeah, no.
Nah, not at all. Lance Stevenson, I don't know if it's the Indiana air or exactly what it is, but he seems to fit there. Great game last night as well.
Yeah,
off the
he's
bench.
happy.
27 not 27 points. He had played 27 minutes, had 16 points to go along with 7 rebounds and 3 assists. Let's move on here. Eastern Conference on Saturday. The other game was the Milwaukee Bucks against the Toronto Raptors. That is the 6-3 matchup. And the 6-seed Milwaukee Bucks come out on top 97-83. A big 14-point victory on the road against the Toronto Raptors. Giannis Antetokounmpo, of course, fantastic game. 28 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 1 block. 13 of 18 from the floor, leading the way. Malcolm Brogdon, the rookie from Virginia, had 16 points. Great game there from the Milwaukee Bucks. They steal one in Toronto. The Raptors really struggled from the floor. 36% shooting, only 5 of 23 from 3. And their backcourt, the all-star backcourt that is of Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, shot a combined 9 of 33 and 0 of 8 from 3. Kyle Lowry had 4 points. Wow.
Yeah,
Ouch.
you gotta, especially those guys on your team need to produce, because if everybody's doing their regular production,
which DeRozan, he did not shoot well, but 27 points is as regular.
But it's like, you know what I mean? But you gotta, Kyle Lowry, 4 points. That's not gonna work.
No, it's not going to cut it out.
That's not going to work.
Serge Ibaka did have a nice double-double, 19 points and 14 rebounds. Also had 3 blocks in the game. I'm still not worried about Toronto. They really struggled. Lowry's not going to score 4 points in game 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. I still expect the Raptors to roll by. I'll say they win the next 4, honestly. And Antetokounmpo has to do everything for the Bucks to have a chance. I mean, they had some good contributions. Matthew Dellavedova off the bench had 11. Greg Monroe had 14 off the bench. But it's Antetokounmpo and really 4 other guys for the most part. And he's got to really do it all for Milwaukee. But a great win game 1. They were pretty convincing over Toronto, especially in that second half. 29-19 in the third quarter they outscored them, and then the fourth quarter outscored them by 9 as well. So that's where they really pulled away, is the second half. Move over to Sunday now in the Eastern Conference. We had the 4-5 matchup. That is the Washington Wizards hosting the Atlanta Hawks. The Wizards win game 1, 114-107. Led by point guard John Wall, definitely showing out. He had 32 points to go along with 14 assists. Shot 12 of 24. Bradley Beal chipped in with 22 points as well, but he did shoot pretty poor. 9 of 21 from the floor and 2 of 11 from 3. The Wizards, that backcourt, definitely getting it done. But you also had Markieff Morris with 21 points. Yeah. Otto Porter Jr. with 10. Marcin Gortat with 14. In total, they had 11 players in double figures, including Kelly Oubre off the bench. The Wizards playing really, really well in game 1 here.
I agree.
Kind of struggled down the stretch, but showing up against Atlanta, who had been finishing the season really strong. I think that's a really big win for the Washington Wizards. On the other side, you did have Dennis Schroeder, the German point guard, had 25 points along with 9 assists and 3 rebounds. Definitely showing out that he is that starting point guard for the future, and trading away Jeff Teague to Indiana was a good decision.
Yes, yeah.
So the Wizards take game 1. This ought to be a really fun, entertaining series. I feel like it can go back and forth, given the fact that the Hawks, really good front court with Millsap and Howard, even Schroeder in the backcourt, and even Tim Hardaway Jr., who's been playing well, struggled in game 1, but has been playing well recently. So we'll see what happens. And then that gets us to the 1A matchup. That is the Chicago Bulls and the Boston Celtics. And the Bulls steal game 1 as the 8th seed on the road, 106-102 over the Celtics. Of course, Isaiah Thomas having to battle definitely a lot of adversity yesterday. He lost his sister, China, who died on Saturday night in a car accident. So having to play the next day, really, really tough.
That's hard.
You could tell in pre-games his eyes were
crying,
definitely red. He had been crying, probably in the locker room. A lot of stuff going on in his head. But he played really well in the loss. 33 points, 6 assists, go along with 5 rebounds. His teammate tried to pick up the slacks. Al Horford with 19, Avery Bradley with 14, but they could not get it done. The Bulls do win by 4 points, actually. And Jimmy Butler had 30, including 15 in the fourth quarter, to go along with 9 rebounds. So the Bulls steal game 1. Do you think they have a legitimate shot in the series?
I think so. Only because sometimes, that experience kicks in. That experience factor. Yeah, they struggled this year. They didn't have the year that I'm sure they thought and that they wanted. But, last week they were saying that they were really fighting for that A spot because to get into the playoffs, then we can go from there. And these guys, a lot of these guys know what it takes to get far, knows what it takes to win championships. So, it's surprising as far as when you look at the seeding, 1 and 8, but it's not surprising when you look at the guys that are playing as far as for the Bulls. They are very experienced in when it comes to the playoffs and what it takes, like I said, to get to a championship. So I don't know if I'm not saying, we're going to see them in the finals. I'm just saying games like this, I don't think are going to be, this is not an anomaly, is what I'm trying to say. As far as them winning this game, I don't think it's too surprising if you really take a look at who's playing.
I agree. I think this could potentially go 6 games. You look at Jimmy Butler, he's by far, well, I'm not going to say by far. You have a lot of good players in this series, but he's the best player in this series. Good scorer. He can also play a lot of good defense as well. So you have Jimmy Butler. You have Rajon Rondo playing against the Celtics. I realize it's been a couple of years, but I'm sure he's probably a little salty still about how that whole situation broke up. Then you have Dwayne Wade, the experience of D. Wade. He's not the same player he used to be, but he's got 3 rings, including one of which was Shaq against the Dallas Mavericks when he was on the Heat, where he literally carried the load, and it's like, okay, it's crunch time. And showed that he's going to be like a star in this league, and obviously we know he's going to be a future Hall of Famer. He struggled yesterday, 4 of 12, 11 points, but given like his experience, leadership, you touched on it a little bit, I think that's a good sort of a good player to have in this situation. I would still like the Celtics. I got to think that they're going to play a lot better. They're a better team. But the Bulls did beat them 3-1 in the regular season, so they just kind of match up really well with them. But I still like the Celtics, but this could potentially go 6 games. I think it'll be a fun series, which we don't normally see from a 1A matchup. The Bulls are a lot better than, I guess, 41-41 would entail, which they finished in the regular season.
When you're looking at their stats, they look poor.
So,
but these are guys I don't think, and with Dwayne Wade only having 11 points, but he's contributing in other ways because with that experience, you understand, okay, I'm a tad bit off my game as far as shooting is concerned, so let me contribute in all the other ways, because sometimes when you're young or not as experienced when it gets this far, you feel like you have to do everything, even if you're shooting terribly. And it's like, stop shooting and get other people involved. But you have a guy like that who knows that. That's not something that he has to be told. He can kind of switch up and adjust depending on how he's playing that day, So I'm excited. I think this is going to be fun. And, given Isaiah Thomas's current personal situation too, I'm hoping that he's able, just to get what he needs as well outside of basketball is,
Right, I think he can probably use the games as a little bit of a distraction because you're so focused on the game. It takes your mind away from the heartbreak and the memories and all that for a little bit. Not going to obviously solve the problem, but it takes away a little bit. I think he'll be okay. Game one's probably going to be the toughest. It's the day after. He still played well. As I mentioned, 33 points, 6 assists, and 5 boards. So we'll see how this series goes on. Tonight we do have one game in the East. We have Game 2 between the Cavs and the Pacers. That's 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 Eastern on TNT. We'll take our first break here of the show. After the break, we'll talk about the Western Conference. We do have 4 matchups: Grizzlies, Spurs, Jazz, Clippers, Trailblazers, Warriors, Thunder, and Rockets. We'll recap those game ones and talk about Game 2 tonight between the Spurs and the Grizzlies. Coming up next here at the GSMC Basketball Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Back here at the GSMC Basketball Podcast, we're talking about the Western Conference, the first-round matchups, Game 1s in the NBA playoffs for the West. The first matchup on Saturday was the 2-7 matchup. That's the San Antonio Spurs against the Memphis Grizzlies. The Spurs pull away late in that second half, 111-82, so they blow them out by 29. But the Grizzlies come out really, really hot. They were up by 5 at the end of the first quarter, but it was that second quarter and that third quarter, the Spurs, Greg Popovich, of course, knows how to make adjustments. And I think the big adjustment was Kawhi Leonard, who had a fantastic game. He had 32 points, which was a game high, as well as Marc Gasol for Memphis at 32 points. But the adjustment of Kawhi Leonard starting to guard Mike Conley in that second quarter really, really solidified that matchup and kind of was that adjustment the Spurs needed because they struggled in that first quarter. Like I said, they were down by 5, but then they started pulling away, and slowly but surely, I think it was that adjustment by putting the size and length of Kawhi Leonard on Mike Conley, because Conley got off to a good start, but he didn't really finish that well. 13 points on 5 of 14 shooting, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds. But I mean, the Spurs, I'm not really worried about the Memphis Grizzlies. They've had a lot of problems with them in the past, but this year is a little different, I think. Tony Parker chipped in with 18, Kawhi Leonard 32, as I mentioned. You have LaMarcus Aldridge with 20. And then you have a ton of contribution off the bench from just a ton of guys, whether it be Pau Gasol, Patty Mills, Kyle Anderson, David Lee at times, Ginobili, of course, as well. So, I mean, the Spurs are definitely looking solid after Game 1.
Yeah, no surprise.
No, and we'll see what happens. As I mentioned, Game 2 is tonight. It's the second matchup of a doubleheader. You have the Cavs and the Pacers in Game 1, or not Game 1, but the first game of the night. Then you have Game 2 tonight of the Spurs and Grizzlies after that on TNT. So we'll see what happens. The Grizzlies going to need some more contributions from some guys like maybe Zach Randolph. I mean, 3 of 13 off the bench in 26 minutes. Didn't really play all that great. You, of course, do not have Tony Allen in the series because he's out with an injury, which is a big, big loss because the great defense of Tony Allen, he doesn't match up with Kawhi Leonard from a size standpoint, but just from maybe like getting into his mind, playing really physical, that could have been a big, big factor. But he's, of course, not there. And Kawhi played fantastic, 11 of 14. I mentioned 32 points in 32 minutes. So great, great production there from Kawhi Leonard. Spurs take Game 1, 111-82. Moving on Saturday was the 4-5 matchup. That's the Clippers hosting the Jazz.
Right.
And the Jazz get it done on the road, 97-95, behind 21 points off the bench from the wily veteran Joe Johnson, including the game winner at the end of the game there. And also doing it, Pauline, without Rudy Gobert.
Yes.
The big man from France literally went down with a leg injury 11 seconds into the game.
That's tough.
He's got basically like a bruise, a little bit of some tendonitis problems. He's probably going to be out the whole first round. He could potentially come back near the end, like if we're looking Game 6, Game 7. But still, it's going to be a little tough given the fact that he's going to have to play through some pain. So the fact that the Jazz were able to win without Gobert is really big because you have Rudy Gobert at 7'2". He's really tall, really long,
big
athletic.
presence, and
Great defensive player, good shot blocker, can really pound inside, get a lot of rebounds. You didn't have that, so that's really tough to overcome, but they played well. You had Gordon Hayward, 19 points and 10 rebounds. I mentioned Joe Johnson off the bench. You had Derek Favors step up in place of Gobert with 15 points and 6 rebounds. George Hill, 16 points as well. So a nice victory on the road for the Jazz here. Looking at the Clippers side, you had Blake Griffin, 26 points. You had Chris Paul, 25 points, 11 assists, and 7 rebounds. I talked about it a little bit last week, Pauline. I feel like this could be like the last hoorah for the Clippers, like the last chance they have to try and create something.
Yeah, especially with this group of guys, like with this squad. I think depending on how this goes, and even if this goes very well for them these next couple games, I think still at the end of this postseason run, they're gonna have you just have to make adjustments. They have to. They got to add something in. They got to take away some things. They got to realize that they're kind of injury prone and kind of getting a tad bit older. You know, I know we have some old squads like the Spurs who somehow, some way that train is still pushing, and which is fine. But, you know, as far as the Clips, they're looking kind of stale. Just a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. This is like their last chance. And obviously, if they do get by the Jazz, you're looking at the Warriors. And that's like, hey, that's like the greatest parting gift there is. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think this is definitely going to be it for the Clips. They need to make a few adjustments. Blake Griffin's a free agent. I think you definitely have to try and re-sign him as much as you can. He's a star in this league. But apart from there, I don't really know how you break this team up. It's just not really all clicking, and it's not all there.
Right.
They do not take Game 1. They fall Game 1, 97-95. We'll see how it plays. I think this could be a really interesting series. But given the fact that Rudy Gobert is going to be out for probably the majority of it, I'll give the edge to the Clippers. I think that's going to be too much for the Jazz to overcome every single game. So I still like the Clips in that regard. But we'll move on. We do have the 1A matchup, the Warriors against the Blazers. The Warriors take Game 1 at Oracle Arena, 121-109. 12-point victory here, and it was actually tied going into the fourth quarter. The Warriors get it done in the fourth there to pull away and win by 12. But you had great contributions from that Portland Trail Blazers backcourt. CJ McCollum, 41 points, including 27 at the half. Damian Lillard, 34 points. You're looking at 75 of the 109 of the whole entire team just from 2 players. For me, it's the Blazers that they have no production from that front court. You know, Noah Vonleh, 2 points. Mo Harkless, 11. Evan Turner, 12. And then the bench, combined 9 points.
It's just not gonna work.
No.
9 points from the bench.
Especially when you're playing a team like Golden State. Yes. And Portland's coming high. You know, as far as the best records from March 1st, these two teams have the best records in the NBA since that time. So the Blazers are coming in hot, but they just don't have enough on that front court to compete because McCollum and Lillard were fantastic yesterday. They had 75. They're not going to do that every single game, and this series could potentially only be 4 games long. So it's going to be very tough. You're looking at the Warriors side. You have 32 from Kevin Durant, 29 from Steph Curry, 15 from Klay Thompson, 12 off the bench from Ian Clark. But in particular, the guy who really lit it up, and I kind of feel bad for him a little bit because he's almost been the forgotten man of this team.
He has.
Is Draymond Green.
He has.
19 points, 12 rebounds, 9 assists, 5 blocks, and 3 steals, including a couple really nice blocks there that really set the tone in that fourth quarter. One on Damian Lillard stopping some dunks. He's been the forgotten man because you have the addition of KD, so Green's not scoring as much. He's kind of known as just that defensive guy, that emotional leader. And the value and importance he has to this Golden State Warriors team is literally second to none. He just sets the tone for them so much. Without him, I think this team would definitely fall apart a little bit because of that defense and that physicality he brings to the table and that leadership he has. But Draymond Green, fantastic game yesterday. By far the standout performer there for the Golden State Warriors as they take game one, 121-109. And the last game we'll look at here in the West is a very intriguing matchup because you have the top two MVP candidates meeting off in the first round. The Rockets and the Thunder.
I was excited for this.
Well, I mean, it's only one game, but it could potentially not be very exciting.
No.
The Rockets absolutely blow out the Thunder yesterday, 118-87. They won by 31 points. James Harden, he was absolutely cooking yesterday. He had 37 to go along with 9 assists and 7 rebounds. Only 2 turnovers as well. Shot 13 of 28 from the floor. Then you look at the other side. Russell Westbrook really, really struggled. 22 points, 6 of 23 shooting, including 3 of 11 from 3. He had 11 rebounds, 7 assists, and 9 turnovers. I almost would say, Pauline, that this was even more of a reason, this game yesterday was even more of a reason why Russell Westbrook should probably even be the MVP. Because when I was watching this game, when he did not have the ball in his hands and the other guys did, it's almost like they're like, what is this orange thing I'm holding? I don't know what to do with it. Victor Oladipo, 6 points, 1 of 12 shooting.
Yeah.
Andre Robertson played really well. He had 18 points, 7 rebounds. He shot 7 of 10 from the floor. But really no other contributions. You had 3 players in double figures, Jeremy Grant being the other one with 10 points off the bench. There's just no one else on this team. And the fact that they won 47 games, all because of Russell Westbrook.
Literally because of Russell.
It's just even more of a reason why he probably should be the MVP because he's the only guy on this team. I feel like this could potentially be an interesting matchup given the fact that if Houston struggle at doing what they do best, and that's shooting the 3, and Russell Westbrook's heroics could maybe give the Thunder a couple of games, which could be the case. I mean, this is only one game. But the Rockets didn't even do what they do best last night, and that's shooting the 3. They shot 10 of 33 from downtown, and they still blew them out by 31 points. This is just not... I think this is going to be a bad matchup here for the OKC Thunder.
This might be the glimpse into what's to come with that series.
We'll have to wait and find out as the series progresses. Of course, Game 2 coming up on Wednesday. We're going to take our last break here on the show. Coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit about Phil Jackson and Carmelo Anthony. Phil on Friday had a heart-to-heart, a little one-on-one with Melo. Then he came out and talked to the media after. What did he tell them? Well, it was pretty blunt and honest with them. We'll tell you what it was right after the break here at the GSMC Basketball Podcast.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
We are back here at the GSMC Basketball Podcast. The Phil Jackson and Carmelo Anthony marriage, really this year, has been really, really shaky at best. Even just the Knicks as a whole. Whether it be Derrick Rose going MIA, Joakim Noah stinking it up, James Dolan and Charles Oakley feud. But the Melo and Phil Jackson one has been by far the biggest one. You, of course, have Phil Jackson criticizing Carmelo Anthony during the regular season on Twitter. And now, this is even worse. So, Melo and Phil had a little heart-to-heart on Friday.
Right.
You know what I mean? Let's try to settle these problems and figure out what's going on here.
Yep. He had to do his little exit meeting.
Earlier last week, Carmelo Anthony had come out and said, if anybody was talking bad about me directly, I would want them to basically come out and be straightforward with me and be very honest.
Let's not be vague about this. Let's just talk about this.
You know what I mean? And I'm sure Phil Jackson's looking at like, hey, I mean, if this was what you really want, I guess I'll do that. So he comes out to the media on Friday after their meeting, and he says, quote, I think the direction with our team is that he would be better off and we would be better off somewhere else. So he's basically saying, hey, we don't want you here, buddy, or at least I don't.
You can't get any more straightforward than that.
No. So I guess for Melo, he's like, hey, I mean, I guess you're being honest with me, but yeah, you don't want me here? Like, ouch.
His feelings are hurt.
It's pretty rough. And I've not been the biggest Carmelo Anthony guy. I don't think you could win with him. But, I mean, you are the guy, Phil Jackson, who 2 years ago signed him to that monster max contract deal and gave him a no-trade clause. So the chances of getting rid of him now are really, really tough.
Yes.
Because Carmelo Anthony's never been the guy that you win around. He's been in one Western Conference Finals in his career with the Nuggets. Never been to a finals. Never been that guy that you build a team around. So he's never been that guy that you want to have. But you're stuck with him now because he's on a monster deal. No team is probably going to want to trade for that, given the fact that he's not a guy you build around.
Yeah.
And he has a no-trade clause in his contract. So let's say for some reason Phil Jackson's working up a master plan to trade him to, I'm just going to mention a random team, like the Suns or like the Milwaukee, okay?
Yeah.
Some master plan to trade him to a team. He's like, I don't want to go there.
Be like, nice, try again. Nope.
I have a no-trade clause. I can literally veto anything. Like, no thanks. Like, it's just a marriage that's, like, forced to be together. It's like the divorce papers are there, but, like, no one's willing to sign them because they're, like, just don't want to give up the spot they're in. Like, they don't want to have to split up the house and the possessions. That's literally what it's at.
Yeah. They're just, we don't want to be together.
Where do you think this goes?
I don't know.
Like, what can they do? I hate to put it that way, but what can they do?
Because you're not wanted here, but you don't really want to leave.
Yeah, Melo loves it.
So it's like, it's kind of like I'm staying, but I don't know. And it's weird because Carmelo is content there, or like what, you know what I mean? Like he's content
with it, not necessarily with Phil, but with New York.
Exactly.
It's like, New York. I mean, who wouldn't want to be
content? He's been.
There?
I'm going to be here. I'm staying here. This is where I want to, retire.
I don't really know what's going to happen with this. I got to think that there's going to be some sort of a split up somewhere because the Knicks did pick up Phil Jackson's 2-year option. So he's going to be the president there for at least another couple of years.
Yes.
So he's not going anywhere. So that means the only person that can go somewhere is Carmelo Anthony. Is that going to happen? I think for a team to trade for him, a contender to trade for him, it's got to be bold. We talked a little bit about the Clippers, potentially. I don't know. There was at one point a trade offer, Kevin Love for Carmelo Anthony straight up. Do you maybe entertain that option now if it doesn't work out with Cleveland this year?
Right.
There is a little bit of options there, but Melo has that final say, and that's really, really important. I don't see how he can stay in New York next year and have to deal with Phil, but if he can just use him as a little bit of a distraction and try and stay away from him, maybe. But I don't really know where this is going to go. The Knicks as an organization are just a complete mess. I mentioned Derrick Rose this year. Noah, bad year. Porzingis is like literally fed up with the triangle offense and wants to boycott it so bad.
Yeah,
it's just a mess in New York with the Knicks. I don't really know where this could entail, but Phil Jackson at least gave Melo what he wanted. He was
straight
completely
about it.
honest with him, so I'll give him a little bit of credit for that, but doesn't really look well for these two together in New York. But that's going to be the end for the show today, guys. My name is Ben Brown.
I'm Pauline.
And we are out until tomorrow. Pauline will be back talking a lot of basketball. We have the games from tonight, preview some for Wednesday as well. All that coming up here, the GSMC Basketball Podcast, and all of the news. Thanks for listening, guys, and have a good day. Goodbye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.